Good morning, everybody. Dr. Vasquez here, coming to you live on this glorious morning of March 3rd, 2026. For those of you who saw one of my recent videos over the last couple of days, I mentioned at the very end of that video that I was going to start talking about lithium, which is apparently finally a popular topic. And I said I was going to review an article that was published, or a document that was published by the United States Environmental Protection Agency. Which was published in 2023. I read it this year in 2026, and it's a big stinking pile of crap. An utterly worthless document, funded by my tax dollars. So I paid for this stinking pile of crap from the American government, so I get to critique it because apparently none of them can read or think. So my plan was to bathe this document with the soap of my analysis and try to clean it up a bit. And yeah, I can do that, and I'm about to do it right now. But it wasn't really exciting necessarily because, I would rather create something good than simply critique the work of a bunch of corporate government clowns. But this morning, my friend Mike sent me an article that was just published yesterday by the American Medical Association, and it makes this stinking pile of crap look relatively decent by comparison. So I'm going to look at both of these documents right now. The first one, which I already said, this is going to be pretty quick. This is kind of my preliminary analysis of the second document and my legit analysis of this document by the EPA. Neither of which will take too much time. And I'll probably do a more thorough analysis of this article from JAMA. I'll probably do maybe later today, because right now I'm just going to give you my quick impression of it. But since this article from JAMA was just published yesterday, now I have enough critical mass to do this analysis, which actually takes a lot more time than any of you would imagine, I suppose, because in order for me to critique this article from the EPA the way that I want to, the way for me to give it a proper critique is to know what the hell I'm talking about. And my approach to critiquing this document is largely based on the fact that we've got a lot of data that they selectively ignored in order to publish this corporate propaganda from a government agency. But in order for me to establish that fact, I would then, of course, be obligated to have read all of the previous, relevant research. So I've just about done that. In fact, I just finished reading one of the articles this morning before I even knew I was going to be talking about this right now. So, again, let me just say a few things about this document from the EPA, and then I'll get into the new article from JAMA. I'm also going to show you how to quickly analyze a research article. So, we, or I, or all of us, should distinguish between impressions and conclusions. So in order for us to survive in the world, we have to have impressions. We don't have time or ability, or even the interest at times, to fully analyze something to the fullest extent of our abilities, So anything short of a really complex, detailed word-for-word analysis, anything short of that is going to be an impression. And we're not simply entitled to have impressions, but we're actually obligated to have impressions because we have to function in the world. And, you can't like look at a bear that's, running towards you and analyze it mathematically and say, well, the velocity of this bear is such, and the estimated weight of this bear is such, and, the crushing power of this bear's jaws against my head is going to be such. Maybe I should get the hell out of the way, or fire my gun, or get pepper spray, or whatever. So, we all have to work on impressions. But I am going to give you my impression of this JAMA article, which I haven't read completely, but I'm going to show you how to get a really good impression really quickly. And it takes three things, and I hope I don't forget what these three things are, so I'm going to tell you what they are right now. One is just read the abstract. So the abstract is kind of the summary that all articles provide at the start. It's kind of like, hey, here's what we're about to talk about, and here's what we concluded. So number one is read the abstract word for word. Number two is, after you read the abstract and get kind of an idea for where this is going, usually the next step that I take is to look at the methods. So So every article is going to have an abstract, then they're going to have an introduction. I usually don't give a big care about what they say in their introduction. It's just background knowledge. And it could be accurate or not, but it's not going to be the meat and potatoes of the document. Unless, of course, I eventually read those. But if I'm doing my quick impression, I go from abstract to methods. The other two components, I said three, but I'm going to give you four. Number one, read the abstract. Then jump down. I guess it's going to be five. Then jump down to the methods. That's usually where they screw things up. If it's a bullshit article and you instinctively think it's bullshit, go from abstract to methods. Number three, look at who funded it. And that's something I learned, 30 years ago, literally 30 years ago, 31 years ago, from Alan Gaby. Alan Gaby, who was eventually my nutrition teacher at Bastyr University, he said in one of his lectures back in the early 90s, he said, anytime you read something and you instinctively don't like it, look at who funded it. So abstract, methods, funding. The other thing is, look at the journal that's publishing it. If it's coming from JAMA and the American Medical Association and a bunch of dumbasses who have never studied nutrition, and then they're going to talk about nutrition, you can bet it's going to be a clusterfuck. Plus, how does the American Medical Association make its money? They make their money by taking bribes, propaganda, publicity, advertising from the drug industry. So they want to keep their drug industry partners, they always call them partners. They don't call it bribes, they call it partners. They're going to try to keep their partners happy. And part of keeping their partners happy is grooming the audience of medical doctors who also don't know anything about nutrition generally, and keeping them stupid and ignorant and confused and anti-nutrition, right? So then, whenever the next drug comes along, all these doctors are going to clap and, sit up on their hind legs and say, oh, we have a new drug. So that's called grooming the audience. And in order to keep their advertisers, the drug industry, happy, JAMA has to publish anti-nutrition bullshit so that the audience will be receptive for the next drug campaign. And the other thing is, I don't know if I'm on number 5 or number 6 by now, but you have to know something about the topic. So if you want to understand a given article, you cannot, as you will be taught in any medical school class, which I've taken on research analysis, any medical school course. I did a pre-doctorate research fellowship through the NIH. And so part of my course of study in that NIH program was research analysis. And these people didn't know shit about research analysis. I had already published, 30 articles or 50 articles by the time that was in 2010, I believe. I had already published a lot of research by then. And I knew more about publishing research than the people teaching our class. Because they would always say, oh, look at the methodology, look at the appropriateness of the study design, was it randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled, and all this stuff? Did they have enough statistical methods and all? But they never say that you ought to know what the hell you're reading before you even start reading the article. So in my case, I've read a legit amount of number of articles on lithium. So I have some background in reading this article. I'm not just starting from scratch. If a person were to be starting from scratch, then obviously they would be at a disadvantage, because I can look at an article like this and in seconds I can tell it's bullshit, and I'm going to show you exactly how that happened. But first, as I've already said, and again, as my original intent was, we're going to look at this article, document published by, shucks, screwed over. Well, let's just screw up my screen. We're going to look at this article from document from the United States EPA. So I'm working with a different program today, so it may screw me up a little bit. God, it keeps screwing me up. Okay, so let's just try to take a look at this. I'll provide this document. You can take a look at it. Lithium in drinking water, a resource for primary agencies. This is total bullshit. So conceptually, see, again, you would have to start reading an article like this with some idea of the topic. So lithium exists in 3 categories. I didn't say 3 forms, I said 3 categories. Lithium exists in 3 categories, let's say. Pharmacologic, nutritional, and toxic. And they're looking at this, watch what they do here. They're trying to look at this from a toxicological standpoint, from a toxicity standpoint. But they use a pharmaceutical model for doing that. Well, the whole thing is just screwed up. Why? Look again at what I just showed you. The categories of lithium are pharmacologic, nutritional, including drinking water, which is what they're talking about, and then toxic. They're trying to talk about lithium in drinking water, which would be category number 2, using the language of toxicity, which is category number 3, but the model that they use is category number 1, medical pharmacology. So this thing is just screwed from the start, basically. So you can see that I, wrote my notes, as I certainly should. Some of the stuff they wrote, I just scratched it out. It's such nonsense coming from the American government, which at this point, I mean, you have to understand that the U.S. government is completely captured by private interests. Some of those interests are drug companies, and so they're going to influence government publications in favor of drug companies, which is keeping people dumb, confused, and dependent on drugs. Whew, this is a heavy document of stupidity. So, they make reference to the nutritional sourcing of lithium. Lithium is likely present. Well, look, in a document, this was published in 2023, in a document of this age on this topic, they shouldn't be saying maybe. Lithium is likely present in a variety of foods, such as cereal grains, leafy vegetables, root crops. And then, in the same sentence, they say, but it is not clear which foods may be a significant source of dietary lithium. But you just said they were cereal grains, leafy vegetables, and root crops, plus drinking water. So, they can't even finish one sentence without showing that they're trying to be manipulative, right? They're trying to say maybe, but we don't know, but this would be correct. It's like, this sentence is nonsense. So, here's what I wrote a few weeks ago when I first read this. This entire document is absurd, over-focused on toxicity, and uses prescription lithium as the reference. That's what I just explained a moment ago. Lithium, you can conceive of lithium acquisition, again, in 3 different categories. I didn't say forms. I'm talking conceptual categories. Pharmacologic, nutritional, and some toxicity source, which maybe doesn't even exist according to their own document. And again, lithium in drinking water would be a category 2 nutritional source. But they're using the language of toxicity and referencing the pharmacology of prescription lithium. This whole thing, the whole thing is so unorganized, it's just absurd. But like I've shown you several times now, through instinct or necessity, over the last 20 years of my life, I've developed certain thinking patterns that are kind of my default patterns of categorization and organization. And so when I approach an intellectually unorganized document like this with my default system of organization, then the whole thing just seems absurd. Point number 3, ignores clinical data of benefit at low doses. Oh yeah, so I'll get to another point that they made here. So I said, also known as complete nonsense, wrong form, wrong dose. The whole thing is just stupid. So they calculate what they call a provisional oral reference dose at 2 micrograms per day, which for an 80 kilogram adult would be 160 micrograms per day. So on one hand, they estimate that as being a safe dose. They declare that as their safe dose. But again, they say the provisional value for lithium is based on adverse effects observed in patients administered lithium therapeutically at 600 to 1200 milligrams per day of lithium compound. So that doesn't make any sense for a couple of different reasons. First of all, the language that they use is completely absurd. They say lithium compound, but they need to be talking about elemental lithium amounts. Nobody gives a damn about lithium compounds if you're talking about lithium toxicity when you need to know what is the dose of the actual lithium. So like I've said before, I'm going to use whatever model I can come up with, which is going to be whatever I have in my hands. Let's say that this is lithium. Let me make sure it's closed. I was going to use this for another video, but I'm using it right now for this one. Let's say this is a lithium ion, and this is the carrier, which in this case is an audio cassette player. The behavior of this ion is going to be dependent upon whatever the carrier is. So they can't just say lithium compound as if they're all the same. They're radically different. So again, that's just another stupidity within this article. It's absurd. When they say lithium compound here, talking about drug usage of lithium, they're talking about lithium carbonate, not lithium citrate or lithium orotate or whatever. So the whole thing is absurd. And it does matter. If they're talking about the compound, then they're talking about the two of these things weighted together. Well, if you're talking about lithium carbonate, then it's only 18% lithium. If you're talking about lithium orotate, then it's only 4% lithium. So you're either talking about 18% or 4%, and that's a pretty damn big difference. Plus, the pharmacology is radically different. So this, you can tell I'm frustrated by this because this document is just stupid. Oh yeah, here's the other thing. To account for these uncertainties, the EPA applied a composite, look at this language, a composite uncertainty factor of 1,000. What the hell does that mean? Like, people don't walk around the street, and doctors don't talk this way, scientists don't talk this way. They just made this shit up. The EPA applied a composite uncertainty factor of 1,000 to the lowest therapeutic dose associated with adverse effects in humans to develop their reference dose, their provisional reference dose. Well, my goodness, when it comes to, here it is, ready? Get ready. When it comes to a nutrient that might actually provide benefit, they're going to use a drug model as the reference instead of using a nutritional model as the reference. And we've got tons of data on that. But look at how they clusterfucked this so that this document, it looks like a scientific document and it's total nonsense. So they should be, like I said before, we're talking about lithium in food and water. That puts it in category number 2, nutritional dosing. But they're using the language of toxicology and using the reference ranges and reference dosing of pharmaceutically dosed lithium, and then they're going to divide that by 1,000 and say that's what you should use for the reference dose. That's just total nonsense. Absolute nonsense. So that's all I want to say about this. I'll show you the other research another time, because right now I'm going to focus on that article that was just published in JAMA. But I mean, come on. They're not even, this is a total waste. And I guarantee you this was probably written by a team of 12, 20, or 100 different researchers or analysts or whatever. I mean, this is an agency document. I mean, this thing could have cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to produce this document. And it's total garbage, and I just tore it apart in 20 minutes. And it's worthless. It doesn't do anything for anybody. They established a meaningless reference range based on the meaningless application of the wrong form of the nutrient at the wrong dose for the wrong application, and then they're saying that applies somehow to drinking water standards. I mean, this is too stupid. All right. Again, I'm going to give you my quick analysis of this article. Remember what I said before. Look at the abstract. If it looks like dog shit, then go to the methods and see if it is horrible. See if it's as bad as you think it is. Then look at who funded it. But you have to know how to even look at that. You have to look at the authors. Like, if they work for drug companies, then yeah, they probably have some bias. They want to keep their employers happy. But you also have to look at the institution. This came from the University of Pittsburgh Medical School, I believe. Yeah. So I used to live in Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh is a dead economy. It is a dead city. It's a dead economy. And what you will notice if you drive around the streets of Pittsburgh, like I used to do, you can feel like the pharmaceutical vibe of that school and that city, right? Like this school apparently is getting propped up by drug companies because they don't have any state funding because the state's broke. Pittsburgh is a dead city. That's why we left. I mean, it's just horrible. But if the city's dead and the state's pretty much dead and they're trying to fund a medical school, then who's going to fund the medical school? It's going to be the people with the money, and that's the drug companies. So when I saw University of Pittsburgh, I was already suspicious. I was like, well, this is going to be drug propaganda. Let's see. So abstract methods, look at who funded it. Look at the institution as well. You can't just look at the authors. You have to know something about the topic and then know who's publishing this. As a journal, it's JAMA. I mean, they're going to say whatever they want to make nutrition look bad and their drugs look good. Let's see. I didn't read this part. So the question that they're trying to answer is, can low-dose lithium delay cognitive decline? They did the study, which is total garbage, and they say that it didn't meet their criteria. This pilot trial provides effect size estimates. So here's the other thing about reading research, which I have read tens of thousands of articles. Medical articles typically have a certain cadence and a certain style and a certain vocabulary, and this article represents that very well. However, unless you've read thousands of articles, then you can easily be misled by that cadence and that vocabulary because it sounds very scientific. So I'm going to focus in on this. This is going to screw up my recording a little bit for the alignment, but I'll fix it later. Just look at the language of what this says, and it's totally meaningless. So, just because you read something and the grammar of the sentence is correct and the vocabulary looks sophisticated and they're using big words, just because it looks scientific doesn't mean it's saying anything. This pilot trial provides effect size estimates and methodological insights to inform adequately powered confirmatory trials of low-dose lithium in older adults with amyloid-positive mild cognitive impairment. That doesn't say anything. And most importantly, that would only say something if they did a job that was worth anything to begin with. If what they did is totally stupid, then they can't even say that what we did is, establishing the foundation for future research. They cannot say that based on this research. It's that bad. So like I said, I'm entitled to my impression, and this is only my impression. I'll read the whole thing later today and try not to get sick. All right, so like I said, read the abstract. Well, I guess I'll go back to the abstract. We'll do this in some level of order. They use lithium carbonate. Is lithium carbonate the correct form of lithium for a study like this? Trying to use lithium against mild cognitive impairment? No. So that's their first mistake. They screwed that up. Let me see if I can mark this. Like I said, every time I do one thing, it screws up the other. So that's error number one. They used the wrong form of lithium. Randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled pilot feasibility clinical trial. Yeah, that's a lot of words. From the University of Pittsburgh. Does that sound great? Yeah, I mean, that sounds official. Did they have enough subjects in the study? Yeah, they had 40 versus 40. That's pretty damn good. That's what you want. You want 40 and 40. Watch this. Here's the intervention. Look at how they describe it. See, if you're good at looking at research, you would already be picking up on these things. The intervention, daily low-dose lithium carbonate or placebo for 2 years. You should know what I'm about to say. If you're really experienced in reading research. You should be thinking, why didn't they just tell you what the hell they did instead of describing it? Low dose, just tell me what it is. Like you don't have to give me an introduction here. I can take a number. Give me a number. You don't have to say low dose, just give me milligrams. They covered that up for a reason. So they had 6 outcome measures, and none of them panned out in this study. They had a few serious adverse effects that were almost equal in the treatment group versus placebo, which means they're basically meaningless. a little bit of kidney damage maybe, but they also found more kidney damage in the placebo group. But it's irrelevant. It's only 29 versus 31%. This pilot randomized clinical trial established the feasibility, safety, and tolerability and generated effect size estimates for future trials. No, it didn't do a damn thing. Now, we just made it through the abstract. And what did I tell you earlier? I said, if it doesn't make sense, if the abstract doesn't make sense, go focus in on the part that didn't make sense. That could be their outcome measures, very important, or it could be their methodology. And when they state here intervention, low dose lithium, they're hiding the number for a reason. They are hiding the number for a reason. So I come down here to the procedures. Let me make that bigger. So I come here to the procedures and watch what they did here. It's horrible. It's horrible. It's horrible. Participants who entered the randomized controlled trial received either 150 milligrams or 300 milligrams dose of lithium carbonate, which is only 18% lithium. So these people got about 27 milligrams or 50 milligrams of lithium, but in the carbonate form. Watch this. Participants started 1 pill daily or every other day based on general medical status and medications. Well, first of all, they're saying that these people got either 150 milligrams or twice the dose at 300 milligrams. Well, that's a big damn difference. And now they're saying they got 1 pill every day or every other day. Shit, we don't care. So look at the difference there. They either got an average dose of 300 milligrams or 75. What difference does it make? 75 for some people or 300 for other people? I mean, that's absurd. So some of you might remember something I've said in other conversations, but when I talk about psychopathic people and patterns and behaviors, one of the things I say about psychopaths is just look for inconsistency. You don't have to know what they're talking about. You only have to look at what they say. If they say, we're a Christian nation, and then they start killing people in the streets and bombing other countries and stealing from other countries, then you're not a Christian nation, okay? Or this phrase is meaningless. So all you have to do is look for inconsistency to discover manipulative tendencies and strategies. Likewise, any legitimate research structure has to maintain internal consistency. You can't have some people at 75 milligrams and other people at 300 milligrams and then say, oh yeah, well, that's what we did. That doesn't make any sense. And then they measured blood levels, which also doesn't make sense in this context. Well, I guess it does and it doesn't. Using lithium carbonate traditionally requires blood lithium analysis because the lithium itself in this form is toxic. And that's because it's not working. It rises in the blood because it's not entering the cells. These people can't figure that out because they're so indoctrinated within the medical pharmaceutical model of lithium that they can't see the mistake that they're making. With other forms of lithium that actually enter into the cell better, blood levels barely rise. The goal of lithium therapy is not to raise the blood levels. It's to get the lithium into the cell where it can actually work. These people can't figure that out. So that's why they did the study in this way. So let's go down and look at who funded these people. I already looked at it once and I wasn't too impressed. Some of these people got some drug money. Some of them work for JAMA. And they might get some, additional money. Let's see, man, These people get more funding for one article than I get like for my entire career. Janssen Laboratories, University of Pennsylvania, Nordisk. So let's see who else funded this. Man, there's a lot of funding. NIH. NIH is just an extension